Right now, the God of War franchise is doing something it hasn't done in a long time, existing in 5 places at once. You've got Sons of Sparta, the pixelated 2D Metroidvania spin-off that Sony shadow dropped back in February, which had a mixed but commercially decent reception. Sony also confirmed the original Greek trilogy is being fully remade, which is still early in development, but is already the thing I'm most irrationally hyped about. Then there are the 6th installment leaks pointing toward Egyptian mythology as the next frontier, which honestly makes sense given that Egyptian mythology was reportedly one of the first ideas pitched for the 2018 reboot before Santa Monica pivoted to Norse. And layered on top of all of that is the Prime Video live-action series, which is currently filming in Vancouver and is very much the subject of this video. The franchise has never had more momentum. It's also never had more eyes on it scrutinizing every single move. So when Amazon and Sony dropped the first official image from the show in late February, the response was not great. The general tone just didn't feel like God of War to a lot of people, with some pointing to the color grading and others going as far as calling it AI-generated looking. Reaction across social media leaned critical early, with sentiment in many threads running noticeably negative. And then David Jaffe, the original creator of the franchise, posted a nearly 7-minute reaction video on YouTube where he didn't exactly hold back. He specifically took issue with the flat lighting and the blocking of Kratos and Atreus in the image, comparing the pose to someone doing something far less heroic in the woods. He also wasn't thrilled with Atreus's styled hair, which he felt looked out of place. To Jaffe's credit, he was careful to separate his criticism of the marketing image from his feelings about the show itself. He made clear that he thinks showrunner Ronald D. Moore is genuinely talented and has no doubt the show will be good. His issue was with the choice to release that specific photo as the first impression of such a major property. And honestly, he's not wrong that first impressions matter. Ryan Hurst himself responded to the backlash with an Instagram story telling people not to believe everything they see online, which is an interesting move given that the image came directly from Amazon's official press release. Here's the thing though, one image taken early in production almost never represents the final product. The reaction to an on-set still is essentially a reaction to raw footage before color correction, final VFX passes, and the actual directing vision has been fully applied, so I think the smart call is to hold judgment. The costume work at least was widely praised as being very faithful to the source material. That's actually a big deal. Production design authenticity at this stage of filming is a genuine indicator that the team is taking the visual language of the game seriously. The show is adapting 2 Norse-era games. Showrunner Ronald D. Moore confirmed that the decision to start with the 2018 game came down to the father-son relationship, which is the right instinct. That emotional core is what makes the story work for an audience that has never touched a controller. The mythology is dense, the lore goes incredibly deep, but the thing that hooks people first is watching a man who has spent 1,000 years failing everyone he loved trying desperately not to fail his kid. The series has a 2-season order from Amazon Studios and Sony Pictures Television, with principal photography that began in February under the working title Anaheim Realm, and is currently expected to wrap in April. The math on that production timeline, combined with the visual effects load this show is going to carry, Asgard, the World Tree, Jotunheim, Giants, the Blades of Chaos, all of it means we're realistically looking at 2027 or later for the premiere. There's no release date yet. That's fine. This isn't a show that should be rushed. Now let's talk about the cast, because this is where I think the show has a genuinely strong foundation. Ryan Hurst plays Kratos. If you know him from Sons of Anarchy or The Walking Dead, you know he has this massive physical presence combined with a kind of internal weight that reads as real grief rather than performance. He previously provided the voice and motion capture for Thor in God of War Ragnarok, earning a BAFTA nomination for that performance. So he already knows this world from the inside. That's not a small thing. Callum Vinson plays Atreus, and from what little we've seen, he looks the part. Atreus in the games is a kid who is desperately seeking his father's approval, while also carrying far more mythological weight on his shoulders than he knows. Longtime fans know exactly what I'm referring to. The nickname isn't Atreus everywhere in the 9 realms, and the show is going to have to pay that off eventually. Mandy Patinkin is playing Odin, described as not physically imposing or particularly godlike, but the most powerful Aesir god, a patriarch who leads with an iron fist and is paranoid, manipulative, and obsessed with preventing Ragnarok at any cost. That profile fits Patinkin exactly. This is not the MCU version of Odin. This is a calculating, deeply dangerous man who happens to also be a deity, and Patinkin has been doing morally complex father figures for decades. Olafur Olafur Darri Olafsson, who you might know from Severance, is playing Thor, a man who was once Odin's most trusted enforcer and now spends his days drinking to forget what he's done in his father's name. That characterization is pulled almost directly from how the games set Thor up before Ragnarok explores him fully. It's a darker, more tragic take on Thor than anything the MCU attempted, and Olafsson has the dramatic range to make it work. Max Parker plays Heimdall, the Watchman of Asgard, whose gift of foresight makes him nearly impossible to fight, and whose arrogance masks a real insecurity about his standing in Odin's hierarchy. Teresa Palmer plays Sif, a mortal woman who married into godhood and still feels like an outsider in Asgard, navigating the cruelty of that world through intelligence and confidence. Ed Skrein joins as Baldur, the show's primary antagonist through the main story. A Norse god who can feel no physical pain and whose relentlessness makes him one of the most unsettling enemies Kratos has ever faced. Alistair Duncan reprises Mimir from the games, which is genuinely perfect casting continuity. He's been the voice of that character since 2018, and bringing him into the live-action version is a smart piece of world-building connective tissue. Jeff Golka and Danny Woodburn play Sindri and Brock, the dwarven blacksmith brothers who will likely provide some of the show's most entertaining dynamics, given how aggressively different their personalities are. Sonya Walger, known to a lot of people as Penny from Lost, has also been cast as Freya, a role that starts relatively small in the 2018 game before becoming central in Ragnarok, so expect that to expand significantly in Season 2. Frederick Toy, who directed episodes of Shogun, The Boys, and Fallout, is directing the first 2 episodes, and that Fallout credit matters here, because Fallout is the most direct comparison point for what Amazon is attempting. That show took a beloved lore-dense gaming franchise, trusted the source material, and delivered something that worked both for longtime fans and total newcomers. God of War has an even stronger emotional spine than Fallout does, so the potential ceiling is genuinely high. Here's my actual theory about what makes or breaks this show. The games work because Christopher Judge made silence feel loaded. The way Kratos almost never says what he means, but you feel every word he's holding back. That's incredibly hard to translate to live action without it reading as wooden or distant. Ryan Hurst has the physicality and the experience, but the test is going to be the quiet scenes. The ones where Kratos says almost nothing and Atreus is filling every inch of space with everything his father won't say back. If Hurst and Vincent find that chemistry, this show has a real shot at being something special. If the show leans too hard into spectacle and loses the intimacy, it risks becoming just another fantasy action series with a recognizable brand attached.